Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So the character you play is named Tommy, and she shows up to basically treat a spider bite.
Yes.
How did that wind up becoming part of the picture?
The sort of peeing aspect of the movie, the Clara's character goes and stops to take a pee a lot throughout this road trip, and that is very much inspired by real life Clara, who also has to use the bathroom all the time. So that was the starting point, and then Clara Ruby Castor, who wrote the screenplay for this film, and I all took a trip together right before we sort of started this writing process. And during that trip, Clara actually got bit by a spider in her foot. And her foot swelled up to the size of something big, and we sort of panicked, and it became this really chaotic and crazy couple of hours where we ended up driving her to the ER, I think. I don't know. It turned out to be fine, but we felt inspired then to incorporate it into the film. So that's how that happened.
The film obviously is not all, based on a true story, but obviously if that part is, I mean, other parts obviously are not, but that part just seems very personal.
The spider bite part?
I mean, just the part where you have to, hopefully not panic and just make sure. So how did it wind up being that you came up with this particular part for yourself in this film?
Well, it actually wasn't when we wrote the story and the film, it was a character that we came up with early on, but we didn't necessarily attribute it to me. But as we got deeper into it and we started playing around with the scene and started exploring this character, but also different characters in the film, I felt it was something that I would very much like to play. So like I said, it was a character that felt important to incorporate in the story, but it didn't necessarily feel like something that was mine from the beginning. I sort of grew. We all did sort of grow toward that over time. But yeah.
How did you wind up developing this story with Clara, and in particular having Ewan come in as this real life father daughter sort of relationship?
We started writing it in the pandemic, and it was the time where, as actors, we really weren't sure what the future was going to be like for us. There was nothing happening in film, and for a couple of months, and like many of our peers, we sort of were like, well, are we going to wait for this to start back up, or should we try and work on something ourselves? People were doing that around us. So we started thinking about different ideas for projects to develop, and this was one of them. And we were lucky enough to have Ewan come on board sort of very early on and give his blessing in us developing this, and he seemed excited and game. And so we sort of ran with that idea, and we were thankful and lucky enough to have Ruby Castor, who's a brilliant writer, come and help us out in the structuring and the writing of the actual screenplay. But we all developed it together, and it was something that felt right and effortless in creating. So we just allowed it to progress really over a few months in quarantine around my kitchen table in LA. So, yeah.
Why New Mexico in particular as a place to shoot?
Good question. We actually wanted to shoot it in California initially, which is close to home for everyone at the time. And then we moved it to New York. But truthfully, we ended up in New Mexico because of a significant tax break that is offered to film productions there. And it was also closer to California than any of the other options we had. And Ewan had just had a baby and wanted to be able to go home. And so that was a very important factor to all of us, of course. And so we landed on that. And I'm very glad that it did, because it's an incredibly moving and cinematic landscape, and it lended itself very, very well to the story. So I felt, and it was wonderful to work there, and it was many great local actors we got to work with, and great crew, and so we got really lucky, I think. Yeah.
Did the initial New York aspect play into having your, the part where your character wants to be an actor on Broadway and that sort of thing?
No, I think the New York thing came as a sort of second thought after California didn't work out. And also it would have been winter in New York, like proper sort of snowy winter. So that would have added another layer of difficulty, I think, because a lot of it is shot outside. It was cold in New Mexico also, but it was because it's, at night, especially in the desert, it can get really, really crazy cold. But New York was snowy at the time, and there were just a lot of element sort of aspects to it that we felt maybe could be too difficult. But yeah, since California didn't work out, New Mexico was sort of a great substitute for that and that landscape. So we're very happy with that. Yeah.
As on top of your part as an actor in the film, you also produced the film with Clara.
Yeah. Yeah.
With your own production company, which obviously translates from French as Two Women.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
How did were you a little nervous being a producer on the film? I mean, obviously, I think this was your first time producing a picture with Clara.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What was that like, the whole planning process, and then making sure that everything, as a producer, everything, got, you had your shot list for the day, you had everything, obviously being a producer is at times just as stressful as being a director.
Yeah, I mean, producing, as I've learned, is not simple in any way, or not stress-free in any way. It's a very tedious job, and so I have a whole newfound level of respect for producers in this industry. And yeah, it was very difficult, especially like you said, as first-time producers. We've done sort of smaller and short films type of things, but that's a couple of days, and it's easy to manage in lower budgets. And suddenly we were left with a larger budget and a ton of crew and a ton of, like you said, days to make. And so it was very important to us, to Clara and I, to add someone early on to our team of producers, or to Clara and I's team of producers, and that was Greg Loretano, who's a fantastic producer and has a lot more experience than us, and was sort of willing and able to take us under his wing and be very patient and kind and understanding, but also give us the room to develop this film in the way that we had envisioned it. So it was really quite a fantastic team up with Greg, and we've now said that we don't ever want to make anything without Greg again. So he's on a bunch of our other projects now too, which we're very excited about to work on with him.
Is there something currently, particularly on the forefront in development with you and Clara and Greg?
Yeah, so we've been we have the rights to a book called Goddess, which is about a 17th century French opera star and also swordswoman. And she was a real life figure that actually lived and was very famous at the time. And we're trying to develop her life story in a film, and we're working on that in out of Europe, because it all takes place in France, obviously. So that's something that we're very excited about, and we're just starting the writing process now. And yeah, all three of us are involved in that project. So I'm very excited about that, to see where that goes.
Will that be a part for Clara or for you?
I think, Clara's French speaking, so it might lend itself a bit more to her. But we're as actors and producers, we always make room for ourselves in the projects that we choose to develop and work on, because it's, it's part of what we want to do as actors, as well as create opportunities, not just for ourselves, but also for other female actors and crew, and in front of and behind the camera. So we'll definitely be involved. Yeah.
What sort of audience, I guess, do you hope Bleeding Love gets, now that it's out? Particularly now that it's had this publicity push on, Jimmy Kimmel Live, obviously.
Yeah, very exciting. I don't really know how to answer that, other than to say I think it really can speak to many people, and not just people that have had some experience with addiction in the past, because it's about that, obviously, but it's also about friendship and about family. So I think it will speak to very many people in many ways. And obviously, it's an American film, it's set in America, but it's largely made by European filmmakers, myself included. Emma, the director, is we're both from Holland. Clara is obviously from England, the UK, and France. And so it feels like a sort of a very universal, not just story, but I hope it can speak to the sort of, yeah, universal audiences.
That, is a great way to put it. And I really hope it gets, a wide viewing, here, there, and everywhere. It's
Thank you.
Beautiful picture. Beautiful picture. And you do a fantastic job in it, not just as an actor, but as a producer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what two women obviously can put together, do more, with you and Greg and Clara and maybe Ewan down the line. Who knows?
I think so. We'll probably have to, yeah.
So the film is Bleeding Love, directed by Emma von
Westenberg. Yeah.
Westenberg. Thank you so much. This has been Vera Bulder. I really hope I said that correctly, by the way.
You did, yeah.
I'm so sorry. You probably had that happen all the time, people.
No, it's okay. You did.
All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Coming out.
All right. I appreciate it.
All right. This has been Matt Blanchette, AndersonVision, and I've had the opportunity to speak to Vera Bulder today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Thanks, Matt. Okay.